evening. My name is Tim DeLeon. I'm with the Colorado Springs Fire Department. And this evening I'd like to take you through the process that we as an organization utilize to establish our newest and latest mission statement. It was not an overnight process. We worked through getting stakeholders and senior leadership in a room to discuss what the previous mission statement was and what direction we wanted to go. So some of the things that we need to establish is oftentimes it's a good exercise to define really what a mission statement or what a statement is not. And really in this case, a mission statement is not a substitute for good leadership. So regardless of the words or the craftiness that you have in the statement, it never replaces a leader's intent or a leader effectively leading an organization. A mission statement is not a silver bullet. It's not something that we can put in place and it's going to solve all the problems of the organization. And this was kind of described in her work called Mission Possible by Stingley. She talked about organizations that often try to establish a mission statement to pull themselves out of trouble, and that's not really what the mission statement is established to do. And then finally, a mission statement isn't stagnant. It is something that is put in place to direct an organization, but as the organization evolves, new challenges come forward, it's imperative that the organization change that mission statement and adjust that mission statement to meet the needs of the organization. So oftentimes we get asked, what's the purpose of a mission statement? So really, a mission statement answers a few questions. Why does the organization do what it does? And so where should we focus and how should we conduct our business? What should the organization look like? Whether it's a professional organization like us with a fire department or a small business. And so with the fire department, we looked at what we should look like, what we want to demonstrate to the public. And then finally, how should we behave, or what should be our aspired state of the organization, and that should be described in the mission statement. Some of the processes that were presented in the textbook were opportunities on how to run meetings and how to get the right people in the room to discuss the mission statement. I think one of the best keys to this was the 6-question process, and that consisted of 6 questions that we should ask. One is who we are. The second is what are the basic social and political needs that we exist to meet? In general, what do we recognize and how do we respond to the needs or problems? And then how should we respond to our key stakeholders? What are our philosophy, values, and culture? And then finally, what makes us unique or distinctive? And so when an organization goes through the process of answering these questions, oftentimes it generates thought and really some key reflection into the organization leadership to determine what do we really want to set the course to, or what do we want our organization to achieve? And so it's critical when you're asking these questions to include some different stakeholders, or in our case, people that are in the community. And our stakeholders are different and similar to other departments, but unique to our community. And so one of the things that was kind of enlightening in the text was when it referred to an individual that speaks to themselves, and we typically consider that individual as mentally ill. Similarly, an organization that looks inward for the solutions or the mission or the direction they should go is oftentimes an unhealthy organization because they're not reaching out to those that they serve to determine what they need to do. So our stakeholders include citizens that we deal with in the community, and that can be whether it's a call that we run on or established citizen visits that we solicit information and input from them. Our business owners in the community or our stakeholders. Other fire departments in our region also contribute to the position of a stakeholder because we work with them pretty closely. There's different ways to engage these stakeholders. One is online surveys. This has been a transition from mail-out surveys, which historically have a low response. We've seen that online surveys tend to increase, but they're still lacking, I guess, is what I would say on getting that feedback from the citizens. What we have found most effective with our organization, with the city in general, is holding community listening tours. And so we will go to each of the council districts and have meetings with the community to determine what their needs are, what their desires are, how they expect their fire department to respond and effectively mitigate those emergencies. We found that when we go with other departments in the city, it is very effective. It's very efficient because we can make sure that we are getting that citizen input for various services that the city delivers. So when we look at who our scope or who we provide services to, it's important to start your strategic planning for the mission statement to really identify your customers. With Colorado Springs Fire, we obviously serve the community of Colorado Springs, and that's how we are supported with the tax generation from the citizens, but we also have regional partners that we work with, and those regional partners include other departments, other city departments, and other entities that are across the region that we live in. We have national interactions. We've worked with everybody from developing national standards for the fire service or contributing to training for national emergencies or national groups. And uniquely, we have some international interactions. We've worked with the Ukraine in providing some examples of services that we provide and allow them to come out and visit and watch us perform those services. And we even have a sister city in Mexico that oftentimes we'll donate to or provide some training to. And those are also considered some of our customers that we provide service to. So that's essentially the first component of the mission statement, is really understanding who you serve or who we serve. And then the second step is, what do we do? And what are we in existence to do? City charter establishes a fire department as the entity that is responsible for all emergencies. And so that includes fire suppression, which is structure fires and wildland fires, vehicle fires, things like that. We're also the authority having jurisdiction for medical responses, both emergency and non-emergent responses. That has kind of evolved over the past few years, where it's not only the 911 calls that we respond to, but as a department that's looking at community risk reduction, we're getting ahead of the actual medical call or the acute incident and providing some support services for our frequent callers or individuals that don't have resources to seek help medically. And so we've found some alternative ways to prevent them from calling 911 and taxing the system. And so this gives us a different way to interact with those individuals. And then finally, fire prevention. Probably one of the most significant impacts that the fire service or the fire department can have is prevent the fires. If we could prevent all the fires, then we wouldn't really need a response model. But this is reflected through our code inspections and our plan reviews, and we do that along with the regional building department. And so those are really the three aspects of the service delivery that we do: fire suppression, medical response, and fire prevention. So one of the things that we want to utilize that mission statement for is to essentially provide some direction. And so one of the other things that we look at is, how do we want to provide those services? And so one of the things that we value as an organization is being professional. And we exemplify this through multiple certifications and credentials that our personnel maintain. We are very dedicated to serving our public with compassion. And so a lot of times we're seeing people on their worst day. And so it's important for us to have compassion with those individuals. And then finally, we want to provide a service of excellence. And so we want to be excellent in all that we do. So we want to be masters of our craft, and then go above and beyond what's expected from the customer. One of the things that was kind of interesting that I think established why we need to have a mission statement and what we're using the mission statement for, two excerpts that I came across recently. One is from his book Atomic Habits from James Clear, and he describes the significance of having a direction, and that's what the mission statement has. And he references it to aviation, and he actually did the math and realized that if an aircraft takes off from Los Angeles and is a few degrees off on their direction, they'll land in New York rather than Washington, D.C., which is a significant deviation from plan. And so he talks about how when we are developing habits, it's important to establish that direction, similar to a mission statement. And then one of the tried and true handbooks that chief officers reference is called the Fire Chief's Handbook. And in that handbook, the author talks about using a mission statement and organizational objectives and goals similar to a flight plan. When things come up, budget cuts, changes in the community, things like that, we may have to deviate from that plan a little bit. But if we have that plan in place, we'll end where we need to be. And basically what the author said is we may not follow that path, but by knowing where we need to go, we'll always end up at the right airport. So I think it's critical to make sure that we have that guiding document in place before we start an organization, or update it as we continue that organization. So finally, as we developed that mission statement and we finalized it, we came up with, it is the mission of the Colorado Springs Fire Department to deliver fire, medical, rescue, and prevention services to our community with professionalism, compassion, and excellence. And so it describes the who, the how, and the people that we're going to serve. And so thank you for listening, and have a good night.